he hadn't spoke to me. He hadn't give any up. He was already giving updates on my health, and he had no idea what had gone on. Yeah, so disappointing, mate. Disappointing.
I wasn't saying anything negative toward him. You know, and I think the thing's going to be taken out of context, or he didn't see what I said, because I don't even remember what the fuck I said. But never once did I say anything negative about him, or, you know, in a derogatory way.
The MMA world is absolutely on fire right now. Dana White just dropped some comments about Tom Aspinall that have sent shockwaves through every corner of the fight community. We're talking about serious discussions exploding across social media, podcasts, forums, you name it. So let's break down what actually happened here. Tom Aspinall came forward about the insane reaction he got after his fight ended. This is where things get completely nuts. People were straight up accusing him of faking his injury. I'm not kidding. Despite clear video evidence showing an eye poke happening live during the fight, doubters were still coming out of the woodwork. Even after Tom went through weeks of medical testing, specialist visits, gathering official documentation to prove his injury was real and legitimate, the criticism actually got worse. More people started questioning his character as a fighter instead of backing off.
I realized, people genuinely think that I faked this. People actually think that I was faking it. And then I was like, did people actually see the replay of what happened? Because that was a full-on eye poke. So then I was like, what is going on? Why are people thinking I'm faking this, like, after everything that I've been through to get there? So then I left it quite a while. I thought, right, I'm going to get all the doctor's notes included. I've been through it for like loads and loads of tests for weeks. I've literally been in the hospital 2 or 3 times a week getting different tests. Then I come up with a doctor's report, and then people are like, oh, he's fine about it. He's doing a media tour on it. He's milking it.
Tom opened up about Dana's public statements and said he felt let down by the whole situation. Here's what bothered him most. Dana was giving media updates about Tom's health status without actually talking to Tom first. No private conversation, no checking in to get the real story, no understanding what Tom was actually going through medically. From Tom's perspective, it felt like his situation was being discussed and decided on before he even got a chance to share his side. That's gotta stink, having someone make public statements about your health and career to millions of people before they even call you to see how you're doing.
Yeah, slightly disappointing, because he hadn't spoke to me. He hadn't give any up. He was already giving updates on my health, and he had no idea what had gone on. Yeah, so disappointing, mate. Disappointing.
Dana fired back with his own explanation. He made it clear the UFC had people monitoring Tom's condition around the clock. Medical staff, specialists, whatever resources Tom needed, the organization was providing full support and staying in regular contact about his recovery progress. According to Dana, he was simply relaying information that the medical team was giving him about Tom's status and healing timeline. Dana emphasized he wasn't trying to minimize what Tom went through or suggest the injury wasn't legitimate. His position was straightforward. Tom would take the necessary time to heal properly, get back to full strength, and return when he was completely ready to compete at championship level again.
So obviously, and I know Tom said, you know, I haven't even talked to him and all that stuff, but we have people all over him right now, you know, checking up on him, making sure he's good. Does he need any help, or, you know, any specialists? Yeah, I'm no doctor. I'm just saying what I've heard. And that was in no way, you know, it wasn't said in a way that they're like, oh, what do you think? I said, I think he's fine. Or it wasn't like that. I said, I think Tom's eyes are good. He's going to take some time, heal.
Dana went further and clarified he never made any negative comments about Tom Aspinall. He felt his words got twisted in the media circus, which honestly happens constantly in this sport, where every statement gets analyzed to death. He said he couldn't even recall his exact phrasing, but insisted nothing was intended to be disrespectful or dismissive of Tom's situation. Dana acknowledged that Tom was emotionally affected by the injury, which makes complete sense. This guy just took a serious eye injury during a massive fight. Obviously, he's going to have feelings about it. Dana's main message was simple. Tom will recover fully and come back when he's ready. Nothing deeper than that. Just basic facts about the healing process.
I wasn't saying anything negative toward him. So, and I think the thing's going to be taken out of context, or he didn't see what I said, because I don't even remember what the fuck I said. But never once did I say anything negative about him or, in a derogatory way. I'm sure he's upset and fired up, and, he'll get better, and we'll get him back in there.
Luke Thomas jumped in with a different angle on this whole situation. He pointed out this isn't really about personal beef between Dana and Tom specifically. It's about where fighters rank in terms of star power and promotional value. If Aspinall was already a massive draw, one of those fighters who guarantees pay-per-view buys just by their name being on the poster, the UFC would definitely defend him more aggressively and control the narrative more tightly. Promotions naturally protect their biggest moneymakers, the athletes who drive serious revenue, because that's just business reality in combat sports. Tom simply hasn't had those breakthrough moments yet to reach that elite tier, those huge pay-per-view headliners or viral knockout moments that launch someone into mainstream superstar territory. This isn't about his fighting skills at all, just where he currently sits commercially in terms of drawing power and widespread recognition.
I mean, what I would say is if Aspinall was a huge driver of an audience for them, Dana would probably look past a lot of whatever else is driving the friction, right? So we probably wouldn't even be asking this question if he was drawing like enormous amounts of eyeballs. It just wouldn't even be a part of the conversation. You would be factoring in that Dana would just, find a way to make good use of that, which, by the way, you would expect a promoter to do that. That would be the right thing to do. So the fact that he's not doing that kind of tells you where you're at. Now, again, I don't think that's the biggest indictment on Tom. There's just not many stars, and Tom could be big and important for the UK market, which of course I think that he is, but he just hasn't graduated. Dude, it takes a long time to become a superstar. You have to get fights like the John Jones fight. You got to kind of win them. That's the thing that elevates you.
Luke expanded on this by saying, Aspinall definitely has superstar potential, but isn't quite there yet, which influences how Dana approaches situations involving Tom. However, Luke suspects there might be more to this tension than just ticket sales and drawing power. Maybe Tom turned down certain requests from the UFC, declined fights or promotional duties that the organization wanted him to take. Or perhaps his father's involvement in his career rubbed management the wrong way. You know how promoters can react when family members start getting heavily involved in negotiations and business decisions. Aspinall isn't a household name superstar yet, but he's definitely not irrelevant in his division either. He's a legitimate, dangerous contender who's been finishing people consistently. That middle position can create awkward dynamics where you're significant enough to have some influence, but not quite big enough to call all the shots.
Enormous superstar potential, but hasn't actualized it yet. And I think Dana's calculus probably plays into that. However, what I would say is there's got to be something more to the story. They don't like that Tom might have asked for certain things or said no to certain things. They may not like that Tom's father is his own man and that speaks his mind. I mean, there could be any number of other things that are probably also exacerbating tensions, because I seriously doubt it's strictly. I mean, like on the one hand, Aspinall's not a superstar. On the other hand, he's not a nobody either.
Mark Goddard brought his referee expertise into the conversation with a really important point. He argued the sport needs to focus on prevention rather than just punishment after eye pokes happen, and that means fundamentally redesigning the gloves themselves, addressing the source of the problem, instead of just penalizing fighters after incidents occur. A glove design that naturally keeps the hand in a relaxed position would reduce accidental pokes while still allowing all the grappling and striking techniques fighters need to use effectively. This would make things much easier for referees to manage during live action. If the gloves themselves discourage extended fingers through their basic design, refs wouldn't have to constantly issue warnings about hand positioning and risk missing important moments of the fight.
I think we need to look at preventative measures too, and I think a lot of that rests in the glove. It's not like a magic. There's no rocket science. It's not a magic wand. I'm not saying that it's an easier mechanic as well. If we have a difference in the glove, without getting into it here, talking about how fighters' hands are during a fight, in a natural C, closed. Obviously, they still have to be able to open their hand to facilitate the grappling. But I think it's a twofold attack. One is mechanical, like I said, a change in the glove, a design to make sure that we can at least help to keep the hand in a relaxed state. Then if it's what I think then for referees, it's a much easier mechanic.
Goddard also stressed something crucial from his decades of officiating elite MMA. He's never once believed a fighter intentionally tried to poke someone in the eye deliberately. These incidents happen because of fighting mechanics and the unpredictable nature of close-range exchanges, not because of malicious intent or dirty fighting tactics. It's about how certain techniques work and the chaotic reality of high-level combat. He asked fans to understand this distinction, to recognize that these situations are almost always accidents rather than intentional fouls.
In a fight, I've never, ever, like I said, 21 years as a ref, I've never actually, in a free-form fight when people are exchanging blows, I've never once thought that a fighter has done that intentionally to poke someone in the eye. It just doesn't. I've got news flash. It just doesn't happen like that. Unfortunately, stylistically, unfortunate, bad things happen in fights, and we're going to tackle it. That's all I can say. Please.
Chael Sonnen brought up an interesting comparison to sports like wrestling and judo, where athletes engage in constant hand-fighting, non-stop battles for grips and positional control, but you rarely see eye pokes happening with any frequency in those sports.
Wrestling, for example, with absolutely no glove whatsoever, we don't have a lot of eye pokes. They happen. They're not non-existent, but it's not to the point that it's a problem. Olympic judo. Judo in general doesn't have to be the Olympics, but you're allowed to touch the person's face. You're allowed to reach for the person. You're encouraged to do so, and you don't really have what you would define as a problem with eye pokes. So, but this is part of the pretend. This is all part of the pretend. We're pretending that the person poking the other person in the eyes is not trying to poke them in the eyes. We can't imagine that they would.
Michael Bisping offered his perspective, saying, "It's completely natural for Tom to feel frustrated since he's dealing with all the fan backlash, medical appointments, specialist visits, and weeks of being unable to train properly or maintain his competitive momentum." Bisping doesn't believe Cyril Gane did it intentionally. When the eye poke occurred, sometimes fingers just extend naturally when you're reaching to grapple or establish control during clinch exchanges. It's just the reality of those scrambles and transitions. He argued the current fingers up or down rule is too simplistic for the complexity of actual fighting situations. In his opinion, the easiest solution is teaching fighters to maintain a loose fist when they're not actively throwing strikes, making it a core part of their training from the very beginning of their careers.
We've got the three big rules. We call them the big three because they're the only ones that were around in yesterday and they're allowed today. Don't bite him. Don't kick the son of a bitch when he's down. And don't touch his eyes. Any one of those three has got to, if you want it to stop. And by the way, you don't need to change the gloves. Like, this is a cop-out. This is a massive cop-out. If you start disqualifying athletes for any one of those three, you will never see any of those three again. You can change the glove. You can chop their fingers off. Or you can just hold them accountable when they do it. And that seems to be the one big idea that nobody has yet had.
Bisping emphasized that Tom's priority should be listening to medical professionals and not rushing anything with his recovery timeline because eye injuries are extremely serious and not something to gamble with. He's still young, still in his athletic prime, and has many years left to achieve his goals in the sport. Some people want him to return angry, drop his friendly personality completely, and start violently finishing everyone to make a statement and shut up the critics. But Bisping thinks that's completely the wrong approach, not smart for Tom's long-term career or physical well-being. Proper recovery and patience matter far more than trying to prove points to critics right now through some dramatic comeback. The opportunities will still exist when he's fully healthy again,
Now, obviously, Tom's the one living through this. Tom's the one that's getting absolutely slaughtered online. And Tom's the one 6 weeks later still having to go to the doctor and still can't train and do any kind of combat. So he's the man that's living with this, okay? So you understand you kind of will get emotional. You will be pissed off and you will think that Cyril Gane was doing that on purpose. I still don't, okay? I don't think Cyril Gane did that on purpose. What you want to do is crack someone in the face. And when the hands are out, when you go to grab, if someone comes in to take you down or whatever, sometimes that happens. That's why this whole rule of the fingers being up, not allowed there, but they're allowed there, is stupid.
This is number one.
Because what happens when someone comes forward and you got to grab them, because you can grab, you're allowed to in the rules, fingers go haywire, go into eyes. Make a fist, make a loose fist. It's not hard. That's all that's going to happen.
Chael Sonnen pointed out something fascinating about Tom's career trajectory. He became champion and racked up first-round finishes one after another, completely dominating his division, all while staying calm and smiling, keeping that likable personality that fans connect with.
Is listen to the doctors. Do not rush anything. The man's still young. He's in his prime. He's not on borrowed time. He's still got years ahead of him. Listen to the doctors. Come back, whoop some ass, take the gloves off. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Tell everyone to go themselves, knock some people out, and this whole escapade will be behind him. Doing interviews and showing the receipts and showing the doctor's appointments and all the rest of it, I don't think that's the way forward. I really don't.
Beyond the whole Aspinall drama that's been dominating headlines, UFC events keep delivering major talking points. The bantamweight division just got shaken up completely. Even Khamzat Chimaev showed some unexpected class, congratulating Petr Yan on an excellent performance and wishing Merab a quick recovery with encouragement to return stronger after the difficult loss.
Is the world champion, and before that he was the interim world champion. You know that guy that knocked out 6 men in the first round? You know that guy that Bisping was talking about, who in his entire career in the UFC has only gone to the second round once? By the way, that was against a world champion who, by the way, he ended up stopping. That guy. That guy's done all of that in a good mood. He's done all of that with a smile. He's done all of that happy. What are you going to do with a 262-pound angry Tom Aspinall? And you can't answer that.
Tom Aspinall shared his reaction to the fight, and his perspective as a champion was really interesting. He said honestly, he couldn't picture Merab losing anytime soon before this fight happened. That's how dominant Merab had appeared recently. Even with the loss against Yan, he gave Merab complete credit for his 4-fight run and the incredible performance level he maintained consistently. Tom felt the matchup was competitive enough to deserve another chapter, that the technical nature of their fight proved these two athletes belong in the cage together again. From his viewpoint, a trilogy would be something he'd want to see as a fan, because fights this evenly matched and skillful deserve definitive resolution.
Couldn't see Merab losing anytime soon. Fair play.
He has had 4 fights.
Fair play. Merab has had 4 fights. I'd be interested in a trilogy. I definitely want to see a trilogy of that.
Analyzing the technical aspects more deeply, Aljamain Sterling said Merab didn't attack the body with his hands the way he typically does, and that strategic shift might have cost him points with the judges. He noted Yan looked much more comfortable fighting southpaw this time around, especially with the left body kick that he landed consistently throughout the fight. Sterling believes the technical adjustments are completely fixable once they review fight footage together, breaking down what went wrong tactically. He doesn't think this represented Merab's best performance, not the version we've seen demolish so many other opponents, and expects major improvements if they meet again in a potential rematch.
I want to say he didn't at all go to the body, like with his hands like he normally does. And we really feel like that could have probably been a difference maker. Kind of like when the first fight, Yan kept attacking the calf, and then Merab started kicking his leg back, and eventually he hurt him, had him forced to switch into the southpaw stance. This time, Yan was a lot more comfortable in the southpaw stance because he was having a lot more success with that left body kick. And yeah, just a couple of technical things we were doing wrong. I think once we look at it and evaluate it together, we'll all kind of see just the same thing and be able to make those adjustments relatively quick. and just kind of do some fight walkthroughs, some fight simulations, and I think that's going to be the difference maker to us making adjustments to his adjustments. And
Leon Edwards also weighed in on the matchup, calling Yan versus Merab a spectacular showcase that represented bantamweight MMA at its absolute finest, and admitted he watched it twice because there was so much technical skill to appreciate. He specifically praised Yan's takedown defense, highlighting how effectively he handled pressure from one of the division's most accomplished grapplers. Edwards kept his assessment simple and direct, just high-level work from both competitors, adding another respected voice to the chorus, praising one of the night's standout performances. Petr Yan, now the new champion after years of career ups and downs, marked this moment by saying history had been written and thanked everyone who supported him through difficult periods. He gave special recognition to his family and team, the people who remained loyal through tough losses and controversies, dedicating this victory specifically to them. Yan said this win finally restored everything to its proper place after feeling like his career had gone off track for too long, a confident statement from a champion beginning a new phase of his fighting career. From Tom Aspinall's eye poke situation that continues developing to the Yan Merab result that completely reshuffled bantamweight rankings, conversations are moving rapidly across heavyweight and bantamweight scenes, affecting multiple divisions and ongoing storylines.